Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pat's Pulpit pregame show. It is week 6, and the New England Patriots are about to host the Cincinnati Bengals in what should be a very good game. With me, as always, is Alec Shane. Alec, it's a beautiful fall day. How are you doing?
It is a beautiful fall day, Rich. It's in the low 50s right now. Going to get up to about 60, 65 in mid-October in New England, which doesn't make any sense at all. But a lot of things don't make sense this year in 2016. It's been a year of not a lot of things making a lot of sense. But what does make a lot of sense to me is a homecoming game for Tom Brady against the Bengals, and I cannot wait.
Oh, Alec, the background of your video looks a little bit different. Why are you so excited about today's game?
Well, the reason I'm excited is actually the reason everyone else should be excited, and that's that I will be in attendance today at Gillette Stadium. I will be in section 329, row 3, up with the degenerates in the nosebleed section. So if anyone else is going to the game and will be in and around section 329, hit me up. Beers are on you.
Oh, absolutely. I won't be there, so beers will not be on me. But I think that this is going to be a good game. This is one of the few good games this week. And I know that the Patriots are big favorites over the Bengals. They're currently up at around 9 points, 9.5. So no one thinks it's going to be a good game. I think it will be. But looking around the league, the Broncos lost this week. That's fantastic. But all the other games that we should care about as Patriots fans or with regards to the AFC seeding, they're kind of boring. The Dolphins are playing the Steelers. The Steelers are like 8-point favorites. On Monday night, the Jets are playing the Cardinals. The Cardinals are like 8-point favorites. The Bills are playing the 49ers. The Patriots want the Bills to lose, but the Bills are 9-point favorites. Is there any game that you're interested in over the rest of this week, or is that Broncos loss the only thing?
Terrich, I picked a pretty good week to go to this game, not only for Tom Brady's return, but I'm not going to be on the couch watching the rest of the games as I usually am. And I'm not really missing anything here. I guess I'd be curious
Browns
to watch.
Titans game doesn't interest you?
I mean, Jaguars, Bears, Eagles. I mean, I don't. Maybe the Ravens, Giants might be interesting to watch. Both teams are kind of in a downward spiral a little bit after some pretty tough losses. I think they're both looking to get their season turned around. I think the game's in New York, I believe. That'll be an interesting game to watch. Chiefs Raiders is actually a pretty interesting game in terms of AFC West standings. The Raiders are now currently sitting alone in AFC West at first place. The Chiefs looking to rebound, and if the Broncos lose and the Raiders win, then I'll have a nice inside track for maybe winning that division.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the 4 o'clock slate is a little bit more interesting. You have the Packers and the Cowboys in Lambeau, and I think that the Packers are kind of interesting because they're down to one running back. Eddie Lacy is their only running back on the roster. Randall Cobb is apparently going to be the backup running back. And then Tyler Montgomery is also another wide receiver. So their top 2 backup running backs are wide receivers. That should be pretty interesting. And then you got Falcons Seahawks, which I think is going to be awesome because the Falcons just completely torched the Broncos last week. I think that they did an amazing job. They didn't even have to rely on Julio Jones, who for my money is top 2 wide receiver in the NFL. Didn't have to rely on him. Really excited to see how Matt Ryan performs against Seattle. But yeah, I mean, looking at the other games, I think that the one that everyone will take note of is the Steelers-Dolphins game, only because the Patriots are playing the Steelers next week. And so the Patriots are going to be very, very interested to see if anyone emerges for the Steelers or how they look against a Dolphins team that the Patriots themselves are familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. That could be a huge matchup. Potential AFC Championship game preview. The winner of that game could potentially have home field advantage depending on how the rest of the season plays out. And it's funny, I was actually a little worried looking at this schedule a couple weeks ago that the Patriots-Bengals game was going to get flexed into primetime because the primetime game of Colts versus Texans does not have anybody excited either. So you're right, man. Not a lot of quality games on the slate today, but that's all right because there's a pretty good one coming into Foxborough. Bengals-Patriots. Bengals got stomped by the Cowboys last week. Ezekiel Elliott had an absolute field day. Dak Prescott looked incredible. The Bengals just got worked up and down the field, 28-14, not even as close as the score indicates, some garbage time TDs later on. The Bengals are in a pretty tough spot right now. They kind of need a win today. They need to come in and show the league that they are not a team to be reckoned with. They're not just pushovers. However, it's Tom Brady's return. The Patriots are rolling right now. What are your initial thoughts on this matchup, Rich?
Well, I think you touched on it a little bit about last week in the Cowboys, where Ezekiel Elliott, he just ran all over the Bengals. It wasn't even a fair competition. He was busting out 10-yard runs at a time, put a cherry on top with a 60-yard rush. They couldn't do anything to stop him. And I think that that's what the Patriots are looking at, and they're going to try and exploit it. And I think you look at how Bill Belichick and Marvin Lewis, they go way back. Marvin Lewis has been the head coach of the Bengals since 2003. Belichick's been with the Patriots since 2000. They've seen each other over the years. You know, they've faced each other 6 times. Belichick has a 5-1 edge. The one loss came in 2013 where the entire Patriots team was injured. It was a monsoon, and they lost 13-7. But the Patriots on their 5 victories, they've averaged like 38 points per game. It's been an absolute stomp by the Patriots offense. And I think that they're looking at this and seeing in 2014 when the Patriots had the We're On to Cincinnati game, Stevan Ridley and Shane Vereen combined for like 220 yards and a pair of touchdowns. So I think that the Patriots know that they have the opportunity and capability to run over this Bengals defense. So for me and my money, I'm really excited to see how the Patriots perform in the run game with LeGarrette Blount. Hopefully he's a little bit healthier because I know his hip was bothering him last week. But we get James Devlin out there, you get Gronk and Bennett out there blocking. I'm really interested to see if Blount can have a big day after starting off very, very well at the beginning of the season. He's kind of had a couple down games in a row, but if he can rebound, have a great game, that'll open up a lot of opportunities for the passing game in the second half.
Yeah, let's talk about the offense. Great place to start. Looking at the Cowboys game last week, the running game was just on fire. Bengals were helpless to stop it. I don't think that the Patriots running game is as potentially potent as the Dallas running game is because LeGarrette Blount is kind of a streaky runner. But you're right. The Patriots have had success running against the Bengals in the past. And I imagine the Bengals had emphasis this week on not allowing the running game to just gash them the way they did last week. If the Patriots can get the run game going, their play action is going to be absolutely devastating, especially with Martellus Bennett and Rob Gronkowski both expected to play today. Bennett has the ankle injury, but he'll be on the field. And Gronkowski's battling some kind of stomach bug, possibly just really hungover. Who knows? He'll be out there today as well. So that's a two-tided monster that the Patriots have had success with last week, and the Bengals had a hard time stopping. Historically, tight ends have been very successful against the Bengals. So if you're the Bengals defense, Rich, how do you strategize towards stopping the Patriots today?
Well, I mean, this is the question that's going to bother every team. And I think specifically with the Bengals, as you said, not only have they kind of struggled against tight ends, they've been very, very fortunate this year. You know, if you look at the teams that they've played, the Jets don't have a tight end on the roster. You know, they have like Kellen Davis, but that's kind of he's seen 0 targets over the course of the year. When they played the Steelers, the Steelers had placed Ladarius Green on the injured reserve, so he didn't play. When they played the Dolphins, Jordan Cameron had a concussion. He didn't play. So they've gone this season and they've been fortunate enough not to have to face tight ends until this past week against the Cowboys, where there's Jason Witten. And Jason Witten, he's a future Hall of Famer. Don't get me wrong, no matter what Martellus Bennett says. I think that Jason Witten was the best tight end they faced this year. He's like 50 years old, but he was out there, put up 50 yards, you know, that's nothing to sneeze at. And so I think you see how that tight end performed against this Bengals defense, and the Patriots have to be licking their chops because I think that tight ends have a lot of success, specifically because I don't think this Bengals defense has good coverage linebackers. And I think that that's the big problem is that you look across the board with Vontaze Burfict. He's like a Brandon Spikes run stuffer, goes up the middle. Ray Malaga is not very good either. Then you have Vincent Ray, who Belichick has talked a lot about as a special teams linebacker. So he's fine, but he doesn't bring a lot of value on defense. And then there's Carlos Dansby, who I think is very underrated. I think he's an okay coverage guy, but there's only so much he can do. He has to serve in the middle of that defense, and he's like 33. You know, I think that the Patriots definitely have the mismatch to their advantage when you're looking at the tight ends.
I agree. I feel that the Patriots have a interesting matchup on the secondary side of it, the receivers versus secondary. The Bengals secondary is actually pretty decent. Adam Pac-Man Jones at 33, still in the league somehow and playing at a fairly high level. Dre Kirkpatrick, the fifth-year guy out of Alabama, is a pretty solid corner. They have Darqueze Dennard and Chris Lewis-Harris. I mean, they have decent players in the secondary. I think the knock on them this year so far is they haven't really played as a cohesive unit so much, and they're a little unorganized, and the communication issue has been a problem in the past, which is fixable through practice. So I'm curious as to see how Amendola and Chris Hogan, who had a huge game last week, Julian Edelman match up against these Bengals secondary, especially if the tight ends get going. My real question, I guess, for you, Rich, is Chris Hogan a legitimate deep threat, and should we expect some more deep bombs to Hogan today?
Okay, so I do think so. I think he is a deep threat, specifically because he's like 4.39 speed. You know, if you can't even call it deceptive speed at this point, because he's fast. He is just a very, very fast player. He was getting behind the Browns defense, which, okay, they're not great. The Browns are not a good defense. And so they'll be facing much, much tougher competition here. And as you said, Pac-Man Jones, he's old, but he's still a very, very fast athletic player. He can do a lot out there. And they have a lot of first-round talent there, including Kirkpatrick and Dennard. So I think that the Patriots are going to have their hands full if they choose to attack them with the wide receivers. And specifically, I think Kirkpatrick is not saying that he's like Brandon Browner, but he's one of those taller cornerbacks that does better against lanky, tall wide receivers. So you put out a fast and shifty guy there. I think the Patriots had the advantage. And so if I'm the Patriots, I'm looking at the secondary and saying, who do they have that can match up one-on-one with Martellus Bennett and Rob Gronkowski? And I'm going to say no one. I don't think that there's anyone on that defense, and there are very few in the league that can do that. But I specifically don't see anyone in this Bengals defense that can do it. So if the Bengals say, here's a cornerback, here's a safety up here on a tight end, all right, well, I'm just going to check to a run play and just run down their throat because teams have been able to run against the Bengals. And if they throw in another linebacker or a bracket, then someone else will have single coverage. So I think that the Patriots have a really good matchup battle here going. And I think because those tight ends create so many problems for this Bengals defense, I'm looking at these wide receivers. I'm seeing Julian Edelman. I'm seeing Chris Hogan. I think that they're going to have big days. I think Edelman has to have his first big day with Brady. He was very disappointing last week. But I think that the Patriots are going to say, all right, well, let's attack the middles of the field. Let's put these wide receivers and put them in the zones of the linebackers, see if they're going to do anything. Because I think that you take the Patriots wide receivers against these linebackers every single day. And I think that kind of tips the scales in the Patriots' favor.
It absolutely does. And I think that if we know that, Marvin Lewis and the Bengals also know that, which means the big matchup today, in my mind, offensively versus defensively, is that front four of the Patriots, or the front five of the Patriots, versus the front four of the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that's going to be where the game is won and lost in the trenches. It usually is, but I think more so today than usual, because if the Bengals pass rush, which has some good players, Geno Atkins is no one to sneeze at, like Michael Johnson. The linebackers, as you said, are not great in coverage, but they are pretty solid rushing, pass rushing, run blocking, run stuffing linebackers. So if the Patriots offensive line can have a big day against the Cincinnati front seven, front four, whatever you want to call it, give Brady a couple seconds to throw, I think it's going to be a very long game for the Bengals. However, that's a question mark that I don't really know the answer to, because the Bengals do have the ability to get to the quarterback, make him uncomfortable, and as everybody always knows, getting to Brady, making him uncomfortable early is the key to beating this Patriots team. So how do you feel initially about the matchup, Patriots offensive line versus Bengals defensive line?
I think Bill Belichick put it nicely during one of his press conferences this week, where he was saying, all right, you have two big players that you need to focus on this Bengals front four. One of them is Geno Atkins, as you talked about. Geno Atkins is a top 3 defensive tackle in the league, and extremely disruptive. He comes out of the 3 technique spot, so he's lined up in between the guard and the tackle. He completely ruins the entire offensive line. He just destroys everything. He's a one-man wrecking crew. And then the Bengals intentionally line him up on the other side of the line from edge rusher Carlos Dunlap, who we all need to remember the Patriots took Jermaine Cunningham over Dunlap, and Dunlap is, maybe he's not a top 10 defensive end in this league, but he's a top 20 guy. He's an above average starter. And the Patriots took Jermaine Cunningham over him. But you look at Dunlap out there, and then you pair him up with Atkins. That's a tough situation for all the Patriots, because you have to figure out who's going to be matching what, who's going to be supporting whom. You have to watch out, because the Bengals, they supplement their defensive line with a lot of blitzes from their linebackers. And so what makes Geno Atkins so difficult is that, all right, you pair him up against a guard and a tackle, and all right, he can split that gap. Or you can double team him out there. You can ask the guard to do it. Atkins is going to win every single one-on-one matchup. So you have to throw some support out there. So does that mean that you designate a tight end to help block with the left tackle? Do you put a running back in there to help chip? Do you ask the guard to slide over and then have the center help, because that opens up some of the passing lanes or pass rush lanes up the middle? And then you have Dunlap on the other side. And Dunlap's going to be lining up against Cameron Fleming, Marcus Cannon. That's not a great situation. I'm actually very curious to see if Cameron Fleming will be there as the starter, if Cannon's still dealing with his calf injury. So that's something to monitor. But I think that Dunlap is better than either of those players. That will be something to monitor, because, all right, well, do you put a tight end on that side to help out? And the way that the Bengals balance their defensive front makes it difficult for the Patriots to counter. So I think that, for me, as you said, the matchup of the game is going to be Joe Thuney versus Geno Atkins. That's my matchup of the offense versus defense. I will be watching that one. I'm stealing this from you. But I think that Joe Thuney, he's a rookie. He's going to have his hands full. He's had a good game every single week this year. He's gotten better in pass protection. He's gotten better in run blocking. So I think that this is going to be a huge test for him. I'm very excited and intrigued to see how well he performs, because if Joe Thuney can handle Geno Atkins, then there's no limit to what this Patriots offense can do. Is
Joe Thuney your offensive X factor, Rich?
Well, okay, so he's that's the matchup to watch. I think that my X factor is got to be LeGarrette Blount. I think that Blount, whether or not he can perform, the status of his hip, if he can grind it out, if he can do better than the 1 yard, 2 yard, 1 yard, 15 yard, if he can be a consistent 4 or 5 yard grinder, then the Patriots have this game in the bag. So whichever LeGarrette Blount shows up this morning will be very, very key for the offense. What about you?
Yeah, it's a good call. It's funny because, Blount has done very well running to the outside this year so far. His kind of stretch runs, his sweep runs to the outside. And as you said, the Bengals are pretty good on the edge rushers. And if they can kind of coordinate and stuff that and force him to go up the middle, could be a long day for Blount. I'm sticking on the running backs as well, but I'm going to go with James White today as my offensive X factor because of that pass rush, because of those abilities for those edge rushers, Carlos Dunlap, Geno Atkins, and et cetera. That is the screen passes dream right there. Getting those guys in the backfield, get them going early, quick little dump off to James White, motion them out for the quick ins, quick cuts. So James White, who actually now has, as we talked about a couple podcasts and the pregame previews, he can run the ball now. Now he's not a dynamite breakaway speed guy, but he can pick up 3-4 yards of carry if he needs to. Whereas last season he had none of that whatsoever. He's purely a pass catching back. So a couple of mix of runs with James White out there where you can run him and then not know immediately he's going to be passing if he's out there. I think it's going to be really important. So James White gets my offensive X factor today.
That's a good one. All right, so I have a few comments on James White. And I don't know if anyone's been listening to Mike Lombardi, who's been joining Bill Simmons' podcast over at The Ringer. But Mike Lombardi, former Browns general manager, he's one of Bill Belichick's oldest friends. Belichick brought him along to be like a personal assistant, personal executive for the Patriots coaching staff. And he has some fantastic insight. And he's been around the Patriots for a few years. He kind of stepped down this year. But he has a few good comments on White, and I think that they're very, very relevant. First one was that when the Patriots drafted White, when they saw him in OTAs, when they saw him for the first time, they're like, oh, wow, this guy looks like LaDainian Tomlinson. He's out there. He's very, very fast. He's quick. He can catch the ball. He can block. He can run. And then the second they put pads on him, he disappeared. He couldn't do anything. The coaches were very, very confused, but they loved his demeanor. They loved the effort and the work that he brought every single day. And he's gotten better every single year. In my mind, I compare it to Shane Vereen, who did nothing his rookie year. He's kind of banged up, didn't do much his sophomore year. And then he finally emerged in his third year, and then he was a huge contributor to the Patriots Super Bowl run in 2014. I think White has been an ascending player, but what he has to change is another Lombardi thing, is that he said James White is a Fred Flintstone runner. And what that means is that whenever you watch James White, and you'll notice this now too, is that whenever you watch him get the ball, whenever he starts to run, he does the pitter patter. He catches the ball, he pitter patters his feet before he goes. Not saying he's Dance Maroney out there, but he takes a little bit of time to get going, whether he's waiting for the blockers to set up or he's just resetting his focus down the field. He's got the pitter patter going on. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good or a bad thing, but I think if he can limit it, he might have a little bit more burst and explosion to get down the field. And he might be able to pick up more yards.
Rich, you might not know this, but those of us with a lot of rhythm and ability and skill, we tend to do that sometimes when we move around because we have that, we kind of get it going. We get the shimmy going. It's hard to break, but I hear you. I understand that. Overall, though, Rich, would you say who gets the edge? Bengals defense, Patriots offense? Oh,
Patriots offense. No hesitation there either. I think that this Bengals defense has not been good. They've been struggling. I know that they haven't played some great offenses, but I mean, you let up 28 to a rookie quarterback in the Cowboys. I know that the Cowboys have a much greater offensive line than the Patriots have, but you can't allow that to happen. I think that if the Patriots get up 2 touchdowns, then I don't see how the Bengals are going to come back. It makes them very, very one-dimensional. And so I think the Patriots offense, I think, honestly, I would give them the edge against almost any defense in the league, except possibly the Broncos, but I'm not even sure because I think we've seen how teams can pick apart this Broncos defense this year. They've lost their linebackers, and so I think that the Patriots have the edge again with their tight ends and with the running backs out of the backfield. So honestly, I would take this Patriots offense against any defense in the league, including the Bengals. I think that the fact that the Bengals don't have a good coverage linebacker that will be able to at least put a clamp on Gronkowski or Bennett, or they don't have a stout run defense. I think that the Patriots are able to manipulate things. They'll be able to move the ball down the field. So, yeah, I give the Patriots the edge here.
No, I totally agree. And it's funny you mentioned about how they need to kind of keep the game close, the Bengals do. If the Patriots get a 2 or 3 score lead, it's going to be pretty much it. The Bengals are without Tyler Eifert again, and he continues to be out, leaving their main weapons to be A.J. Green, who's one of the best receivers in the league, definitely a legit receiver. Brandon LaFell, former Patriot. Most of us recognize him. And from there, it's pretty much Jeremy Hill and Giovanni Bernard, who have both kind of struggled this year in the run game. Not a whole lot of weapons for Andy Dalton this year. So initial thoughts on Patriots defense versus Bengals offense, Rich. What do you got?
Well, I mean, as you said, A.J. Green, top 3, top 5 wide receiver in the league. He's second in receptions, second in receiving yards. He's nothing to sneeze at. So I think a big matchup on the day will be Logan Ryan versus A.J. Green. How does that work out? Because I have the impression that the Patriots are going to give the Bengals kind of the Houston Texans treatment. You know, they're going to eliminate A.J. Green just like they eliminated DeAndre Hopkins and say, all right, you try and win down the field with these other players. I think the problems with the Bengals offense starts up front. I think it all comes down to their offensive line, where over the years, the Bengals have had a fantastic offensive line. They have Andrew Whitworth, who has historically been, he's an all-pro offensive tackle. They have a lot of talent there. They have Clint Bowling at guard, who I really like. They have talent there, Kevin Zeitler. But this year, for whatever reason, they've fallen apart. No one really has an excuse why. No one really knows why. But you look at this offense, the Bengals pass blocking. They have the 30th ranked sack rate in the league, which means that only 2 teams get sacked more than Andy Dalton. And I think one of them is like the Dolphins and the other one's the Colts. So, I mean, like, these are not good pass blockers. And then you look in the run game, and then on a running yards per play, the Bengals rank 28th. So there's only like 4 or 5 rushing attacks worse than the Bengals, or not rushing attacks, but rush blockers. So I think that you have talent in there. You know, you have Giovanni Bernard, you have Jeremy Hill. Those are 2 guys that if you put them on the Patriots, if you put them on a lot of other teams with an average offensive line, they'll get a lot of production because Jeremy Hill's a hammer out there. Gio can catch out of the backfield. He's a very big threat of his own. But when you eliminate this offensive line as a big feature for this Bengals offense, what do you have? I think that you can't establish the run, and that's so important for Andy Dalton. And if you're looking at the Patriots and saying, all right, well, we're going to eliminate A.J. Green. That's out of the gate. That is our number 1 priority. If you can win with Brandon LaFell, we understand him, but we'll put Malcolm Butler on him one-on-one. If you can win with him, so be it. But we're going to eliminate A.J. Green, and then we're going to sell out to stop the run because, you know what, Andy Dalton, you can't throw – like, we don't really trust you to win the game down the field with your number 3 weapon, your number 4 weapon. We don't think you can do that because we think our number 4 or number 5 defenders are better than your offensive pieces. So I think that the Patriots have a good matchup here. But my question for you, just speaking on this topic, if you're looking up at A.J. Green and you're looking up at Brandon LaFell, how do you defend them?
Well, I don't think you're going to defend A.J. Green completely. You saw it last week against Dallas, even though the game was out of hand when he got a lot of his carries. But if you're going to completely eliminate him from the game, I think that's a poor strategy. I think you just want to limit his production, keep him in front of you. So the Bengals are going to win this game. It's going to be on some kind of long passes down the sidelines to A.J. Green for like 70, 60-yard touchdowns. So I think actually Duron Harmon's my guy today. He's my defensive X factor because I think McCourty's going to be doing a lot of lateral movement. Malcolm Butler tends to struggle a little bit against taller, rangier receivers, which LaFell is. He's got definitely a size advantage. So he can't just sit here and totally double bracket A.J. Green every single time, which leaves Duron Harmon to be a lot more instinctive in how he decides his coverage schemes. So if I was them, what I would do is, especially without Jamie Collins, who's out today with a hip injury, you have to limit the run early, get a couple score lead, and force them to throw it. I think if they can force the Bengals to throw it, Dalton will make mistakes. And you don't want to make sure that you don't want to. The object of the game should not be to eliminate A.J. Green, make sure there's a big fat 0 next to his name. I think it's basically you want to force him to the inside, force him to run routes he's not comfortable running, routes he doesn't enjoy running, and frustrate him that way. Because if he gets a couple of long ones and him and Andy Dalton get going with their rhythm and their timing and their distance, it could be a long day for the secondary, especially a Patriots offense or Patriots defensive line that hasn't been that great at the pass rush. There have been a bunch of almost sacks this year, which has driven me nuts. They have a guy in the grip in the backfield, and he scrambles out. Not even like Tyrod Taylor, but like Charlie Whitehurst last week somehow escaped the sack. You know, so Charlie Whitehurst is escaping sacks in this Patriots front line. There might be some issues there, but I think that the key is basically make sure that Green gets his touches, but they're all pretty tame touches and not really game-changing, game-breaking touches. And the way you do that is with, like you said, Logan Ryan and a combination of McCourty or Harmon, depending on the route.
Yeah, I think that it's important that the Patriots played the Browns last week because Browns head coach is Hugh Jackson, who's the former offensive coordinator of the Bengals. So a lot of what the Patriots saw from the Browns last week will be kind of similar to what the Bengals will be doing. We know that the Bengals will be doing it at a much higher level. They'll be doing it much more involved, and they'll be much more advanced because they have players that have been in the system for a while, and Dalton and Green and Hill and Bernard. Like, they have players that have done it for a while. But I think that specifically the Patriots are going to focus on stopping the Bengals offense in a similar way that they focused on the Browns. And while the quarterback is different, there's no question Andy Dalton is infinitely better than Cody Kessler. You go out there, if you stop the run, and then you put the game on Dalton's shoulders and you do enough of a job to limit A.J. Green, you know, as you say, if you don't completely stop him, if you can limit A.J. Green the same way that you limited DeAndre Hopkins, then I think that the Patriots, if they can get up 1 score, 2 scores, as we said, that eliminates their rushing attack. And you look at their 4 biggest weapons on that offense, 2 of them are running backs. So if you can stop them, it's kind of like the Jets offense. If you can stop or get a big lead, then that makes them one-dimensional. And when their best players are part of the rushing attack, when they are no longer relevant because they're playing catch-up, then the Patriots have the upper hand, and then Belichick and Matt Patricia can dictate how the Bengals play, and then they'll have the upper hand, and I think it'll be a pretty comfortable second half.
Without Jamie Collins today, Rich, as I said, it's a hip injury, not going to play, expected not to play at least. Are you worried at all about the Patriots' ability to stop the run? Do you expect maybe Barkevious Mingo to step up today, maybe a Landon Roberts? How do you feel about hole left by Collins today?
Well, I think it's interesting because the Patriots just promoted 2 players from the practice squad last night. They promoted Geno Grissom, who's a 2015 third-round pick. We all know him. He played there last season. And then they also promoted Anthony Johnson, who was on the team earlier this week. And so I don't know if either of those 2 players, maybe there was a threat that some other team might have signed him away, but the Patriots promoted them. I think that the Patriots are going to try and sell out and stop the run. And so I think that when we're talking about replacement of Jamie Collins, yeah, absolutely. I think if Barkevious Mingo is going to have his time to shine, I think this is why they traded for him. I think personally I'm a little bit excited to see how he plays because Mingo was just outstanding during the preseason. So I'm very curious to see if he can continue that in the regular season, especially because the Bengals don't have a good offensive line. So maybe this will be the time that Mingo can wreak havoc. He's familiar with the Bengals, came out of the AFC North. Maybe he'll know how to attack them. Give some inside scoop. So I think that this will be the time for Mingo to show up. But when it comes to stopping the run, I think that the Patriots are going to continue to do their 5-1 front, their 5-2 front. And I think that they're going to keep Rob Ninkovich out on that defensive front. They're going to put him opposite of Chris Long. You'll have Jabal Sheard in the middle. You have Malcolm Brown, Alan Branch. Then you'll have Donta Hightower and Landon Roberts as the stand-up linebackers. And I think that eventually we'll see Barkevious Mingo out there. But I'm very curious to see. I mean, Landon Roberts was outstanding last week against the Browns. I would love to see him go in there. I think that he offers a lot of ability as an interior blitzer. So I think that he and Hightower should be fun to watch in the middle together. So I think that Roberts more than Mingo will be asked to step up into that lineup. So when it comes to that, Roberts is actually my X factor on the day. I think that Roberts, if he can perform well, if he can step up, Jonathan Freeney is now on the injured reserve. So this is Roberts' show. He's the number 3 linebacker now. So if he can prove that last week against the Browns wasn't a fluke and that he is truly this dynamic of a linebacker, Patriots have a steal.
Hopefully, Gronkowski can also kick some field goals today. Here's hoping his 3 misses on. I don't want to bash him too much. One of them was a 50+ yarder, but he's already got as many misses on the season already this year as he had all last season. And I'm just a little worried because kickers are weird, man. They get stuff in their head and they can't get it out. So hopefully, a nice home game, a supportive home crowd, of which I am a member, will be just what he needs to get himself back on track. With that, anything else you want to talk about before we get to predictions, Rich?
No, do you have an X factor, or you want to go into the predictions right away?
Defensive X factor, I said, you don't listen to me, Rich. You never listen. You never pay attention to anything I say. I'm sitting here pouring my heart out, giving you all this great content, and it's just in one ear, out the other for you. My defensive X factor.
But what about your X factor?
Daron Harmon, Rich. I picked Daron Harmon. I said it already. Again, I think that McCourty's going to have a long day going laterally back and forth across the field, and Harmon's got to be a little more, not only to patrol the middle and the shorter routes, but McCourty's going to have a handful of A.J. Green, so he's going to have the kind of the roaming safety role today. So there you go.
That's smart.
The second time.
That's smart. Let's go to predictions then.
Let's go to predictions. All right. Again, I don't have the stats in front of me, but we both had the Browns losing big last week. I believe I had the edge, but I don't know for sure. I don't want to go ahead and
I'll allow you to have it. I forgot your X factor. I'll allow you to take this one.
All right. Well, I may come back and retroactively give you last week once I have it in front of me. But since I have home field advantage today, so to speak, I will go first. Hey, Patriots win this one. I think they win pretty handily. Again, the only Bengals victory they've had over the past couple of years, as you said, was that mess in 2012, whatever it was. It was on the road. It was raining. Brady's touchdown pass streak came to an end. Nobody really played that well. I think that Brady's homecoming is going to be a emotional, powerful, motivating, and galvanizing event for the entire team. Everyone's going to be pumped up for this one. I think the Patriots win and win big. I'm going 38-17.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, I think that the Patriots are going to win this one as well. I think that it might not be as big as the spread. My thought is that Vegas knows all. The Patriots are 4-1 against the spread this year. The Bengals are 1-3-1 against the spread. The Patriots are currently 9-point favorites. So I'm wondering if Vegas is overselling the Patriots. I think that the Patriots are still going to win, but I don't know if it'll be by 9 points. I think that the Bengals will cover, but I do think that the Patriots will win something to the tune of like 33-25.
Ooh, high-scoring affair from Rich Hill. I like it. Well, we will soon find out. Again, I appreciate you guys tuning in early this week so I can get myself hydrated and off to the game. Rich, and I appreciate you getting up early to get myself hydrated and off to the game. Any final words for our wonderful fans?
No, not at all. But we will have more information on patspulpit.com all day. We will have our post-game recaps. We'll have all of our reviews. We will have more information on facebook.com/patspulpit, where we'll have our post-game live show. Alec, you have fun at the game today.
I will, buddy. Section 329. Come say hello.
All right. Later, everyone.